This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson On Demand.
If you are a fan of history, and maybe you know a little bit about history, you could win some fabulous prizes. Game day coming up at 10:33 this morning. It's, when was it? I'm going to give you a bunch of different things. Tell you maybe an Academy Award-winning movie, a popular song, a couple of headlines, and you tell me the year. Yeah, we'll do some sports. I may tell you who won the World Series, and you tell me the year. It's all coming up. When was it? Game day, 10:33 this morning on 700 WLW. I love history, big fan of history, and I'm fascinated by the presidency. All of the things that surround the presidency, the White House, the pomp and circumstance surrounding it, and, of course, the Secret Service. Maybe just because it has the name Secret. Maybe that's what's sucking me in. Ronald Kessler has a book in the President's Secret Service, Behind the Scenes with Agents in the Line of Fire and the Presidents They Protect. Good morning, Ronald.
Hey, great to be with you.
Good to be with you. This is really fascinating. Just right off, the presidents that had assassination attempts that we don't even know about.
Well, there have been plots. For example, there was a plot that the CIA learned about and on George H.W. Bush after he left office, and he was going to Lebanon, and they gave it to the Secret Service. The Secret Service changed his route, and lo and behold, he's safe. Another one involving Bush, and this is really fascinating, is that when he was going to Enid, Oklahoma, as president to give a speech, the Secret Service, as usual, checked with local authorities, local law enforcement, to see if there are any threats out there. And they said, well, you know, there's this woman who's a psychic, and she has been incredibly reliable and accurate in the past. She's actually led us to dead bodies. And she had this vision that Bush is going to be assassinated by a sniper at an overpass as he comes into Enid. So the Secret Service, you know, was sort of sheepish about taking this seriously, but still agents went out and interviewed her. They asked her if she knows anything more about it. She said she knows that the limousine is already in town and where it was. And they said, okay, can you show us? And she said, yeah. And sure enough, she pointed to the correct hangar at the local Air Force base where the limousines for the trip the next day were parked. So the next day, Bush came out of Air Force One. They didn't change the route yet, but she said that he would be wearing a sport jacket and a sports shirt, and they thought that's crazy because he always dresses in a suit. But lo and behold, he came on Air Force One the next morning wearing a sports shirt and a sport jacket, and so shivers went down their spines. They changed the motorcade route so it would not go under any overpasses, and of course he's safe, and he was not told about it at the time. That I don't know if you'd call that a plot or an imaginary plot, but
you know what? If I'm the president or the president's family, I say if you have any credibility, let's go ahead and just change it. Let's just go ahead and do it. Because see, Ronald, it's not just the political opponents you have to worry about, the crazy people that are opposed to your ideas, regardless of your political affiliation. It's not just foreign entities. It's also just crazy people like Hinckley with I'm doing it to impress Jodie Foster.
Sure. You have these crazy lone gunmen, and then you have the threat of terrorists, and any number of threats could be he could be the target of any number of threats. What they do is they have quite a system of keeping track of possible assassins. They have a threat list of about 300 people, and it's in three categories. Category 3 is the most serious, where they really believe this guy wants to do it and can do it, maybe has had some firearms training. In those cases, if the president is going to his hometown, the Secret Service will show up at that person's house and warn him that he better stay away from the president and that he will be watched, and he will be watched until the president leaves town. Category 1 is the least serious, where someone blurts out in a bar, I wish I could kill the president, or some homeless person says that. In those cases, probably there will not be a prosecution, but there'll be a big investigation. This has been a very effective method. Also, Secret Service agents who don't wear the telltale squiggly earpiece infiltrate crowds. They look for warning signs. Someone who just seems out of place, who might be smiling when everyone else is not, or vice versa, might be dressed inappropriately.
And those agents sometimes are just dressed in jeans, just like everybody else in the crowd, right?
Yeah. And speaking of jeans, in my book, In the President's Secret Service, I go into what the presidents and first families are really like. And Jenna and Barbara Bush were very difficult with their agents, even though their agents would wear jeans and they'd have female agents to try to blend in as if they're friends. But Jenna Bush would actually try to evade her agents. She would go through red lights trying to get away from them sometimes. They would have to conduct surveillance of her car to see when she's leaving. Very, very difficult.
And you're kids and you understand they're rebellious, but you got to understand, these people are responsible for you, and you're just costing us money and time.
Yep, exactly. Eventually they did start to get it, but it took a while.
What about some of the other presidents' families? Maybe Amy Carter. The Obama's daughters are too young at this point to be driving and off by themselves. But what about other ones?
Yeah, Chelsea Clinton was the best behaved. She understood the need for protection. She did what she was told. Amy Carter was just a little brat. She would, of course, she was pretty young. She was maybe 7 years old or so. But she would, for example, in Air Force One, she would purposely take crackers and crumble them on the floor just to see the Air Force One stewards pick them up. And she was just high on Coke all the time. She was constantly drinking Coke, Coca-Cola, that is. And among the presidents, Jimmy Carter was the most detested by the Secret Service, considered the most phony. He would pretend to carry his own luggage in front of the cameras.
Who was that?
Jimmy Carter.
Oh, okay.
But his luggage was actually empty, or else he'd carry it in front of the cameras and then give it to aides as soon as they were gone. He would sometimes come into the Oval Office at 5 in the morning and tell the press office to tell the press that he was in there working hard for the American people, but then he'd fall asleep on the sofa. Among the most beloved were Ronald Reagan, in contrast to Jimmy Carter, who only greeted the Air Force One captain once in his whole four-year term as he got into Air Force One. Reagan would always do that, always go up to the cockpit and say hello. Very, very affable, very considerate. Nancy, however, was a little difficult. One time there was a residence usher bringing in her mail, and her dog started nipping at his heels, nipping at him, and this usher sort of wagged his finger at him, to indicate you shouldn't be doing that. And Nancy blew up at him and said, "Don't you ever wag your finger at my dog again." And there was a scolding and kind of wagging.
What about George H.W. Bush? How was he with the Secret Service? Was he very affable? Yeah, very affable, very considerate. I mean, incredibly so. And so was Barbara Bush. She would actually she would make sure they dressed warmly. She would actually offer to launder their clothes up at Kennebunkport. And President Obama is very considerate as well. He and Michelle have invited agents to dinner. He was secretly smoking. He's finally given that up. But he does treat them with respect, and that is an important character trait, I think. Well, I gotta give Obama's credit for their daughters too. I mean, they are. I don't know if they've been threatened, if they've been coached, if they've whatever. They're just good kids, but they don't cause any problems on camera. They just stand there. They look studious. They smile and they move on. I mean, they're still young, so they're not teenagers yet. We'll see what happens there. But at this point, they
were obviously well brought up.
Tell me about John Snow, President Bush's Treasury Secretary.
Yeah, I go into that in my book, In the President's Secret Service. He was having an affair with a woman in Richmond, Virginia, where his wife still lived, and every weekend he would go back and see her, as well as his wife, and the Secret Service would have to tag along and rent hotel rooms, take him down there. So this was at taxpayers' expense, and he would pretend that that they didn't know what was going on, but of course they did. I have quite a bit of detail about even agents seeing them French kiss in the living room. One time, her husband, the mistress's husband, came home unexpectedly, and the Secret Service started banging the doors of the Suburbans to try to warn Jon Snow that the husband was coming home. And finally, Jon Snow came out looking rather, with tousled hair. Lyndon Johnson was totally out of control. He would have sex with his secretaries in the Oval Office. One time, the Lady Bird caught him having sex with a secretary, and he blew up at the Secret Service and said, "You should have warned me." And in the future, wanted a buzzer system installed so that the Secret Service would warn him if Lady Bird was around.
Now, I had heard stories of Lyndon Johnson actually conducting meetings sitting on the can inside the Oval, the little bathroom off the Oval Office.
That's absolutely true.
He'd just leave the door open and bark orders to people.
That's right, 2 aides. And he would also hold press conferences at his ranch in Texas.
Classy guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, and urinate in front of female reporters.
He was a good guy.
Yeah,
nice.
I mean, this is all items we should take into consideration when we elect presidents.
So tell me about the Secret Service protection that people running for the presidency get. When did they start that? When did they start saying we're going to protect candidates?
Well, it's been an incremental thing. Originally, the Secret Service was formed to go after counterfeiters, and at one point, when Grover Cleveland was president, a gang of counterfeiters also was threatening to kill the president, and so the Secret Service assigned 2 agents to watch the president, and that's how it just evolved into protecting the president. Later, a law was passed by Congress to require that the Secret Service protect candidates. That was after the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, who was running for president and had no protection other than a retired FBI agent.
Interesting. So now we've got it where when you reach a certain point running for the president, they protect you. And I can't imagine being a Secret Service agent and protect. I mean, I understand if you say I'm committed to protecting the office of the presidency and the president, whoever's in that office, but protecting, offering up your life potentially for somebody who's running for president, that's a little bit different.
You're right. It is incredible. These agents really are patriots, and it is all about upholding democracy. Because if you have an assassination of a president or a candidate, you're really nullifying democracy. The other side of the Secret Service is the Uniform Division, which protects the White House, and that entails all kinds of technological devices, sensors, of course, to detect people. Almost every day there's some effort by someone to try to see the president beyond what is considered appropriate. People show up and say they want to see the president. The Secret Service says no. They keep insisting. They may be arrested. Some of them, in fact, scale the gates and have been either killed or taken down by dogs who are known as canine units by the Secret Service. And of course, recently there was that shooter who shot at the White House. In the Oval Office and in the residence, the president has a replica of the presidential seal on his desk and on coffee tables, and if he turns that over, it sounds an alarm, which brings the Secret Service running. Oh. They are, of course, outside the doors of the Oval Office, but also under the Oval Office. They have a contingent there. And besides that, there are secret exits, secret tunnels from the White House as a last resort.
That's pretty interesting. I find the book fascinating. There's a lot more in it. Ronald Kessler in the President's Secret Service, behind the scenes with agents in the line of fire and the presidents they protect. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'll put a link to it on my blog at 700WLW.com. Coming up, my trip to the White House. Not as a tourist, but officially. And the security I had to go through. I'll tell you about it next on the big one, 700 WLW. Trying to remember what year it was. Was early 2000s. Let's say about 2003 or so, 2004. Right through there, I was invited as part of a radio station I worked for to do a broadcast. They had a big media event. They had tents set up on the lawn of the White House. It was fall, and this big, long tent and kind of media row. So as you walk through it, there were people on either side broadcasting. So you'd step in on one end, and you could like pass all the way through like a barn. There'd be somebody broadcasting to your right and left. You go down another 10 feet, and two more people, so on and so forth. In total, maybe 10 groups of people broadcasting. And it was pretty wild. It was under the George W. Bush administration, and what we had to go through was amazing. First of all, prior to this broadcast, and we weren't even in the White House, we were just on the lawn. Prior to the broadcast, by about a month or two, we had to give them all of our information. You had to give them your name, your birth date, social security number, so on and so forth, and say, these are the people that will be coming for the broadcast. At some point, we got a phone call from a Secret Service agent saying, just asking some basic questions, very simple stuff that I would have thought they already knew. So my speculation is that they were just getting reaction on stuff, kind of like when you cross the border. They ask you stuff that they really don't need to know the answer. It's more like that. Then the day before, I had to go in the night before and set up and carry equipment in. And I had equipment that was about the size of a box, maybe 3x3 box cube, something like that. They had to take it in separate. They had me go through a door. I went through a metal detector, went through another hand screening and a pat down by Secret Service agents. Then they opened up the box, went through all of the equipment. Then they scanned it via the x-ray stuff. And then after all of that, then they had the Secret Service agents with dogs come over to sniff and do all that. That was just to get into setup just on the lawn of the White House. And while we were there were agents posted all over, outside the tent, around the tent, and then regular patrols every couple of minutes. 2 agents with a dog and machine guns. There were also snipers up on the roof, whatever. This was the entire time. Now, it may have been a little bit heightened because, it was a special event with people actually on the lawn. But it was incredible to see how many people are there. Elizabeth, you're on 700 WLW.
Hi, this is such a great subject. There are a lot of retired Air Force One stewards here in the Columbus and Cincinnati area. And myself, I have such a funny Secret Service story. The first Bushes, they were the most kind people.
Were you a steward?
My husband was.
Oh, okay.
And I was a military wife. Bread and butter politics was our, we lived it and breathed it living on Andrews Air Force Base. And the Bushes invited the stewards, the Air Force One stewards, for tea at the White House at Christmas.
Oh, very nice.
And my friends all said, well, you have got to have something interesting and intelligent to say when it's your turn to talk to the president. So we're, and he comes out and we're in this beautiful, decorated rooms and we're standing in front of the fireplace for our, photograph. Well, before this moment, we were given an absolutely incredible inside tour of the White House. And I noticed every doorway we came to, there were 2 handsome men on either side. And every one of them had little, wires in their ears. Mm-hmm. And my husband is, hello, hello. And I'm so impressed. He knows all of these Secret Service men. So here's my moment. And as I'm standing there and the president looks at me, I say to him, Mr. President, I think your program for the hearing impaired at the White House is to be commended. And the photographer snapped the photograph. And the look, that weird smile that he had. And my husband said, what the heck did you say?
Elizabeth, were you joking or did you really think that?
No.
Oh, okay.
I thought they were all deaf. I thought, well, secrets,
How wonderful that they're employing the hearing impaired. That's a great story, Elizabeth.
They're all hearing impaired.
I appreciate you sharing. Thanks so much. Yeah, I saw the thing on one of the Discovery Channel or something like that, where all of the food for Air Force One, when they stock it, and you're talking, just pounds and pounds of food all the time, the Secret Service agents go out to the regular supermarket, so nobody knows, that it's going to the White House, and they could taint it way back in the production line. And they go to different supermarkets all around the D.C. area and load up so nobody ever knows and could poison it or whatever. Pretty interesting what they have to go through just to make sure there's food on Air Force One. All right, game day coming up. Do you know history? Do you know years in history? We will explore your knowledge and possibly give you some prizes. Game day on 700 WLW's next. It's game day powered by Jets Pizza. Game day officially sanctioned by the IRPEC, International Radio Promotions and Events Council, regulated by the Game Day Board of Governors and Commissioner Sherry Rowland, who's in the house. Game day encourages true sportsmanship. Any non-cooperative action that results in terminal reduction in biodynamics is strictly prohibited. It's very simple. Today we're going to play When Was It? And if you are correct in guessing the year, when I give you a bunch of facts, things that happened in that year, you are going to get gift certificates to Jets Pizza. I love the Jets Pizza. I think I just saw a new location. I can't remember where it was. But try the Jets Pizza.
There's a couple new locations coming.
Do you know off the top of your head where they were?
Well, I think one is going to be up around the Fields Erdel area. I'm not
Maybe that's
sure.
where I saw. I think maybe that's where it was. I was up there shopping.
And I think we might be getting one in our neighborhood here.
Oh, very good.
How
Very
about
good.
that?
Love the Jets Pizza. Mm-hmm. All right, if you want to play 513-749-7800, the big one, pound 700 on AT&T. I'm going to give you a bunch of different things. Headlines, movie of the Academy Award winner that year, maybe who won a sports championship, all random things that happened in 1 year. You tell me the year and you win. If you miss, we'll move on to somebody else. We'll try some different years. All right, let's go to Alan. Alan and Morrow, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm going to give you a bunch of things. You just tell me the year. First of all, headlines. Russian President Boris Yeltsin survives impeachment hearings. Nelson Mandela was the first black president of South Africa, steps down. The U.S. Senate opened impeachment trials for Bill Clinton. This is the year that Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold stormed Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, killing 12 students and a teacher before they killed themselves. John F. Kennedy Jr. died that year. The cost of a first-class stamp, 33 cents. And the Super Bowl, Denver over Atlanta, 34-19. Name the year.
Oh, boy. Right offhand, I'm thinking around 1997.
Oh, 1990, Sherry Rowland. 1990, your guess?
9?
Yes, 1999.
Really?
Yeah,
Awesome.
Academy Award-winning movie that year, Shakespeare in Love.
I think that's the one that I remember those.
You got American Beauty was out that year. That's the year Jerry Falwell outed Tinky Winky, the Teletubby, for being homo-type sexual.
Poor Teletubby.
Number of internet users in 99 reached 150 million.
Really?
With 75 million of them being in the U.S. So worldwide in 1999, internet users, 150 million.
That was probably about the time we got computers here at Clear Channel.
We didn't get them till like 2007. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
150. We've got more than that in America right now.
Oh, yeah.
We probably got 250 million or more. And we got, wow, that's incredible. All right, play a couple more. Matt and Hebron, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Here's some information about a year. You tell me what year. The first female Episcopal priest was ordained this year. You got scientists identified the previously unknown bacterium that caused the mysterious Legionnaire's disease that year. Jimmy Carter pardoned the Vietnam War draft evaders. The TV miniseries Roots had an audience of 130 million. The Academy Award Best Picture that year, Rocky. It's also the year the neutron bomb was developed. And it was a powerful year for celebrity deaths. In the same year, Elvis Presley, Groucho Marx, Bing Crosby, and Charlie Chaplin died. What year?
Elvis died this year.
Yeah, what's that?
That gives it away.
1978.
Oh, Sherry Rowland.
Oh, that's close. That's 77, right?
Yeah, 1977.
Yeah, Elvis.
That's a tricky one.
I didn't know until you gave me Elvis.
Yeah, that was, I remember my mom was sitting on the couch watching Merv Griffin. Griffin or Griffith? Griffin. Merv Griffin. Mm-hmm. And interrupt this. Elvis Presley has passed away. My mom's like, remember this. People will talk about this. And I remember it. Brian, the West Side. How you doing?
Great.
All right, I'm going to give you a bunch of information. This is the year that Soviet leader Konstantin Chernenko died at the age of 73 and was replaced by Mikhail Gorbachev. It's the year that San Francisco defeated Miami in the Super Bowl, 38-16. The Kentucky Derby champion was Spendabuck. You probably remember that. Madonna launched her first road show, the Virgin Tour. British scientists reported this year opening of an enormous hole in the Earth's ozone layer over Antarctica. It's the year that Coca-Cola changed their 99-year-old formula, trying to bring in some new people. That was New Coke. That at first was a flop, and then in the long run ended up being pretty successful for them. The Academy Award Best Picture, Amadeus. The record of the year was Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do with It. And celebrity death, Rock Hudson. Name the year.
1985.
Yeah, 1985.
Nice.
1985. Hang on the line a second.
We got a winner.
That was when James, the producer, was born. And we don't really hear about that.
I don't want to hear about that either.
It was an interesting year. I think that's Back to the Future was out that year as well. All right, let's go to some more calls here. Let's go Bob and Mason. How you doing, Bob?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Doing well. Tell me the year that General Manuel Noriega surrendered in Panama, the year that the Communist Party relinquished sole power in the Soviet government, East and West Germany were reunited, the U.S. Supreme Court turned over the law banning flag burning, Cincinnati defeated Oakland A's in the World Series 4-1, and the Kentucky Derby Championship unbridled. What year?
Well, that's a layup if you're from Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, well, it should be. That's why.
Right, 1990.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. 1990. Hang on the line, Bob. You're getting that gift certificate from Jet's Pizza. Well, and I just put it in there randomly. I figured that one would be easier for some people.
Oh, that gives it away. Totally awesome.
But, I mean, that's also the one that someone could blow and be like, oh, ah. And you're like, all right.
Yeah.
That same year, Seinfeld debuted and was a flop the first year. The Simpsons debuted. It's still going, and
Yeah.
Seinfeld's gone. Academy Award-winning picture, Driving Miss Daisy.
Aw, that was a cute picture.
All right, let's go Pete. Pete in Columbus. Here we go.
Hi, Doc. Hi,
Hi.
Terry. Love the show.
Hi.
All right, Pete, here we go. This one's going to be a tough one, and it's just the luck of the draw for
No
you.
problem. Give me your best shot.
All right, this is the year that the North Pole reportedly was reached by American explorers Robert E. Peary and Matthew Henson. Japan began its 36-year occupation of Korea. William Howard Taft began as started serving his term as the 27th president of the United States. The cost of a first-class stamp was 2 cents. Pittsburgh defeated Detroit in the World Series 4-3. The Ottawa Senators won the Stanley Cup, and German bacteriologist Paul Ehrlich found a cure for syphilis. Name the year.
I have no idea. I'll guess 1927.
No. Sherry Rowland, what's your guess there? I mean, William Howard Taft is the
Taft.
giveaway. I mean, you got to get within a couple of years of that.
Taft.
He started as president.
38?
It should be a layup. You're from Cincinnati.
I'm sorry. You got me on that one.
That was a good guess, James. James said 1909. It's 1909.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a good one. Matt
Wow.
in Lebanon, how are
That
you?
was hard.
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing fine. This one should be okay for you. Russia launched Sputnik, and the space age began. The USSR tested its first successful ICBM. Federal spending reached $76 billion. yeah, just $76 billion. Cost of a first-class stamp, 3 cents. West Side Story debuted on Broadway. Milwaukee Braves won the World Series. They defeated the New York Yankees 4-3. Columbia University's Professor Charles Van Doren became a media sensation by winning $129,000 on the quiz show 21. Leave It to Beaver premiered on CBS. The Academy Award Best Picture this year was Around the World in 80 Days, beating out, unbelievably, The Bridge on the River Kwai and Peyton Place. Humphrey Bogart died this year, and the temporary artificial heart was invented. Name the year.
I have no idea.
Take a stab at it.
68.
19. Sherry Rowland, your guess?
It's got to be 50s.
Yeah, it's 50s.
I'm thinking West Side Story.
And Leave It to Beaver.
58?
7.
Oh.
Nice guess. All right, maybe this one. Oh, James got that one. Don, I think this one might be a little easier for you. Ready?
I'm ready.
What year did the U.S. Supreme Court rule that Rotary clubs must admit women? It was the year that George P. Schultz testified that he was deceived repeatedly on the Iran-Contra affair. The NCAA basketball championship, it was Indiana over Syracuse, 74-73. The record of the year for the Grammys, Higher Love by Steve Winwood. Album of the year was Graceland by Paul Simon. Best Picture, Platoon. It was the year that Prozac was released for use by Eli Lilly. And the international treaty was signed in Montreal calling for a 50% reduction in the use of CFCs by the year 2000. What was the year?
No more clues, huh?
That's it.
How about 83?
Oh, 87. I didn't realize Prozac was around that long. I'll try one more. Quinn in Westchester, you ready?
Hey, guys.
How you doing? What was the year that Bush and Yeltsin proclaimed a formal end to the Cold War? It was the year that the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, was signed. 4 officers were acquitted in the Los Angeles beating of Rodney King, and that's when the violence erupted in Los Angeles. It was the year the Democratic Convention nominated Bill Clinton and Al Gore, and court declared that Exxon Valdez's captain was not guilty. The NBA championship, Chicago Bulls over Portland, 4-2. Compact discs surpassed cassette tape sales that year. 900 million television sets were in use around the world, and 200 million of them were in the United States. Johnny Carson wrapped it up as host of The Tonight Show, and the best picture was Silence of the Lambs. What year?
91.
Sherry Rowland, your guess?
I was going to guess early 90s. Bush and Gore, 92. It had to be even.
1992.
There you go.
Game day. Well, we got a couple of winners there. Congratulations to those people who knew their history. You're getting the gift certificates from Jets Pizza. It's Doc Thompson, 700 WLW. Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Hollywood has run out of ideas. I mentioned Silence of the Lambs. They're working on that for a TV series. Oh, yeah, I've got a list of some of the things they are working on this year, or in the next year or so, for a TV series. They're working on one, a play off of that. It's going to be Hannibal. NBC's working on it. They say it's going to be Dr. Lecter. He's like the mentalist, except he could eat you.
That is so gross. Seriously?
Maybe that could work. People like the little detective-type shows now. The Rifleman, the 1950s show, they're trying to do that. They've got a television show based on the movie Anger Management, starring Charlie Sheen.
Well, that fits.
I was going to say, there's no acting there, right? There's a new one called The New Neighbors. It's essentially The Muppet Show in the sitcom form. A Palm Springs family is horrified when Muppets move next door.
Is that like Alf?
That's what that is. Yeah, it's kind of an Alf. Frankenstein. They're doing a television show based on Frankenstein. They've run out of ideas. They're doing another Bewitched.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The movie didn't work, if you remember. A few years ago, the movie came out.
And they're doing one based on the 1984 movie with the character Joan Wilder? Joan Wilder? Joan Wilder? What movie is that? Romancing the Stone. Remember that? Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner, who now looks like a drag queen. Yeah, they're going to do I don't know how you do it. It
was a great movie. The second one wasn't as good, but the first one was
They're doing one, Valley of the Dolls, in the 1966 novel.
Oh, jeez.
About pill-popping successful women. They're doing one based on the
Desperate Housewives for that.
Yeah, exactly. Munsters and the Flintstones. They're coming up with versions of that as well. New ones.
That's really lame.
Horrible.
Yeah. I like the Munsters.
What's interesting to me is how some shows, when you watch them, are dated now and some are not. For example, like Andy Griffith's show and Lucy, if you watch them, clearly dated. It's black and white. They're talking about things that, haven't been, or they don't have things that have been invented now, cell phones, whatever. But it's still funny and it still works. But if you watch a lot of those 70s and 80s ones and up into the 90s, they don't work anymore. If you watch some of those shows we watched in the 80s, like Cosby and Night Court and Family Ties, horrible. You can't even watch them now.
But great at the time.
Yeah. But they went from true situational comedy of, here's a lady trying to keep up with chocolates on a conveyor belt or somebody trying to wallpaper a room, to just calling each other like insulting names or stuff like that. And that was kind of funny.
It worked at the time.
Yeah,
why did it work at that time?
I don't know.
But it was...
They got away they've run out of ideas. Maybe that was the natural progression. They did all of the chocolates on a conveyor belt. They went to insults. Now they have nothing left, and this is what they're moving on to. All right, it's Doc Thompson on 700 WLW. Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Got the Bengals game on Saturday. Our coverage starts at noon with Ken Brew. He's going to be talking Bengals. Official pregame at 3:30 and then kickoff 4:30 right here on 700 WLW. Coming up at 11:06. An author that I've wanted to talk to for a while. She has the book Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. Do you remember this? This was a big story within the last year about tiger moms and how moms from China, raise their kids differently, even in America or other parts of Asia. The tiger mom. It's pretty wild. The commitment they make to their kids. Well, she's got some new developments because I think it's her daughter is now off to college. So there's some changes in their life. But think about how your parents raised you and how you're raising your kids. And do you have that commitment? Because there seems to be, and I'm going to talk with her about 1106 and find out, there seems to be some common traits with families from Asia there, provided they're not completely dirt poor and can't afford anything. And then especially when they come to America, because you often have a little bit more, you have to learn an instrument. Sometimes 2 instruments. That's just standard. You just do those things. And your studies and what you learn comes first, and you often are not allowed to stay at other people's houses for anything. Very rigid, very strict. It's like your future, here it is, and we're raising it. Haven't we lost that? We used to have more of that in America. When my brothers and sisters, I'm the youngest, my sister 9 years older than me, oh, yeah, they had a lot more of it than I did. By the time I came along, I was like, we're just tired. Do whatever the hell you want. I mean, that's the reason I work on radio. What a disgrace. I'm the black sheep of the family. My brother's an engineer. My sister's has her master's in nursing. My other sister's an accountant and runs a city in Michigan. I mean, I'm the black sheep of the family. Broadcasting. Oh, they don't even talk about that. It's just, let's go and sweep it under the rug. But they had higher standards. My brother had to learn an instrument. My sister had to learn an instrument. Yeah, we don't care what you do. Just try not to get in any trouble so we don't have to go down to the police station. The standards got lowered. And haven't we lowered the standards all over the place? They've got programs in school now that are very common. Have you heard of the power of I? The power of I standing for incomplete, where you no longer fail in some school districts. They give you an I. And you can complete the work whenever. 6 months later, a year later, you just get an I. It's not held against you. And when you feel like doing the work, or when you get around to it, you can do that bare minimum and replace that I. Then you've got some school districts around the country that will not give you below a 60. Even if you get a 48 on your test, your homework, whatever, they automatically give you a 60, so it doesn't bring your grade down. You automatically get that. Some I've seen automatically give you a 50. You're lowering the bar. How is that helping us? See, the idea is, well, it helps more people over, and they'll learn, and they'll move on. But we're slipping worldwide. I think this may be the answer. The hymn of the Tiger Mother, where you set high standards and you say, these are the standards you will reach kids. Do you agree with that? Let's hear what the Tiger Mother has to say. We'll talk to her next on the home of the best Bengals coverage, 700 WLW.